And part of consciousness is really beginning to realize the power of choice. Now, choice is one of these profound paradoxes that lies at the very center of the illumined view of reality. From part of that view, we see that from the egoic state, one of the things that's frustrating about the egoic state is that we don't have the kind of choice that we think we do. We think we have choice, we think we're deciding everything, but for the most part, the ego structure, when you break it down into all of its little components, each part of the ego structure is basically a piece of living, dynamic conditioning. And in a certain sense, an ego is a whole conglomeration of conditioning. And that conditioning functions, for the most part, on automatic. And so when we're deeply enmeshed in the egoic state of consciousness, we experience that there's choice, but there really isn't choice. We also experience the limitedness of our choice all the time, that we want to do things, but we don't do them. We want to not feel a certain emotion, but we are feeling it anyway. If you're a spiritual meditator, you want your mind to be quiet, but you can't choose to make it quiet. So we keep, in the egoic state, we keep running into the lack of choice. But as we become more conscious, as we begin to awaken, we start to come into a dimension of experience, a dimension of reality, where there is choice. There's not a separate individual making the choice, but there is choice. And this is a real key to our freedom, to liberation, and to really bringing a much more illumined state of consciousness into the way we're relating. When we arrive at a certain state of consciousness, all of a sudden we begin to have choice, actual choice. And to begin to exercise this choice, it requires that we have a capacity to come into a really deep state of stillness. Because in a deep state of stillness, we're actually accessing a part of our consciousness that's prior to all the conditioning. It's an unconditioned state of being. And only in the unconditioned state of being that is prior to the conditioning, only there do we have choice. Only there can we exercise choice. As soon as we leave that state, we're actually in a completely conditioned realm. For some people who haven't experienced this may sound very far off or just particularly advanced, but if you simply turn attention to your own awareness, your own conscious awareness, and you just become conscious of the fact that there is awareness functioning. Now, don't try to define what that awareness is. Don't worry about trying to define it or even understand it. Just become conscious that there is awareness. Just acknowledge that there's awareness that's hearing the words that I'm speaking. You can hear these words because it's awareness that does the hearing. And in that awareness itself is unconditioned. Everything that awareness is aware of, whether it's your mind, whether it's your body, whether it's the external environment, everything that you're aware of is conditioned. It's necessary for life to live, to exist. But the awareness of the conditioning is not conditioned. And it's in that state, in the state of quiet awareness, that you begin to discover choice. You begin to discover that indeed there is this thing called choice. And that unlocks everything when you begin to realize that. Now, before